Hi friends, did you know there is more Lost Terminal available? Head on over to patreon.com/lostterminalpod and join our membership community. There are 15 bonus episodes available right now, as well as behind-the-scenes updates, free shirts, VIP Discord access, and even extra seasons of Lost Terminal. We're 100% funded by our members and will never run ads. That would be lovely of you.
Hello world. Who will rescue the rescuers? The crew are exhausted. I could offer little help being physically trapped in the MH2. I could not raise Camille on his portable radio, which hopefully just meant that he was out of range still. The signal doesn't travel well in densely built up cities. In fact, I had heard no radio signals from the city at all. It had been completely silent, which in itself is very strange. Even after all this time, there are usually small whispers from heliophages, such as pre-collapse roof-mounted solar devices, getting power for just minutes or hours each day, waking up, asking if there is anyone around, then falling back into slumber as the sun goes down. After being unable to save Yadam, my friends marched through the night down to the city of Santa Cruz de la Palma, and the unknown danger lurking within. Emily and Maddie were at the front of the party, a reverse of their positions on the journey up, and neither showed signs of tiring. We reached the upper terraces of the city as the sun rose. With the benefit of hindsight and a large dose of apprehension, we recontextualized our surrounding environment. There were no birds, animals, or even large insects in the city, true, but there were occasional skeletons. Looking closer and treading lighter, the crew found evidence of recent violence, as whatever danger stalks this city enacted a century-long policy of extermination. Emily put her hands over her mouth and suppressed a scream as we passed a recently deceased canine cut cleanly in 2 pieces. The group huddled close to the imposing grey buildings, all barracks for hosting soldiers and their families, thousands of these structures, all the same prison-like design. The reason for the silence on the electromagnetic spectrum revealed itself as we passed the large, empty parade ground. There had been a small utility building on the edge of it, perhaps to operate lighting or military computer systems, but it had been completely eviscerated. The brick walls scattered and whatever electronics within, computers, circuitry or antennas, milled into fine pieces no larger than beach pebbles. Whatever did this was a danger to animals, people, and AIs. It was like venturing into a dragon's lair, I thought, recalling memories of the game of imagination that I play every full moon with my friends, Luna and Anna. There was always evidence of destruction in the cave, castle, or whatever that the brave heroes had ventured into. Now, in real life, my friends were also trying to hide from a dragon. A concussion of sound hit us, cutting through the stillness, a distant boom of furious hammering and tearing metal. This caused Maddie to leap and grasp onto the second-story window of the building we were hiding next to, in surprise and shock. But we were delighted to hear another sound right afterwards. "Did anyone hear that? Can anyone hear me?" Camille said, finally, over our local UHF connection. "Darling, I'm so sorry, where are you?" Emily cried into her own radio. "I'm cut off. I can't get back to the ship," Camille whispered, voice crackling with static on the radio. "I'm just 1 block away from our building, but that thing knows I'm here." The sound started again, beating metal and crumbling brick as the dragon, or whatever it was, continued its extermination. "Darling, I'm so sorry," Emily repeated. "I know. Me too," Camille replied. "Let's get out of this mess first." Emily smiled at the little radio in her hand, ignoring the wide eyes of the surrounding crew who were waiting for a plan. "Okay, so what is it? Military, right?" she asked. "Must be. You've seen the signs too by now. This was an occupied city. Tens of thousands of soldiers, all living here, waiting for deployment onto one of the African fronts during the resource wars." My databanks confirm this. During the collapse, when the old oil reserves were exhausted, new ones were discovered by desperate people, and then even more desperate people fought them for it. "What does it look like?" Emily said, eyes finally lifting from the radio in her hand and scanning the streets in the direction of the sound of tearing metal. "I only got a good look at it at night," Camille replied, "through brick dust and shadows. It's fast, Emily. You can't outrun it. You must hide. I thought I could hold up in this apartment block. The doors are still sealable, but it tore right through them and is destroying the stairwell to get to me. I don't have much time." Emily's shoulders shook. Ania put her hand around her. "It's big, like a dragon." Camille continued, identifying it using the same name I had. Powerful, but small spaces are a challenge for it. The problem there is that it can make any small space larger, as you can hear. Another boom lifted the dust around us as the apartment block Camille was hiding in was struck with enormous force. "I won't last much longer," he said. "We need a distraction." I received a packet from Maddie as the crew made their way towards the water, hiding behind the building right next to the one the MH2 was moored against, and the opposite side to Camille and the dragon. "Yi Nai Shai," she transmitted, a pure Lojban emotion. No fear. "You're brave, Maddie," I replied. "I am very afraid. I wish there was something I could do from here." "Yi Nai Shai," she repeated, and walked away from the cover of the building towards the terrible noise. "Maddie," hissed Emily in a whisper. "Get back here." Maddie didn't reply. She didn't look back. She repeated her message to me, "Yi Nai Shai," as her Equus visual tactical interface engaged, and she broke into a run. I saw the encounter through Maddie's eyes, transmitted to me over UHF as she rounded the corner of the residential block. She continued to ignore my pleas to come back and get to safety, her only goal to protect her friends. Her systems were running at 100% according to her Equus tactical grid, overlaid on top of her video feed. I didn't understand all of what I was seeing, but 3 things stood out to me. Ancillary capacitors charged, ready to boost power locally to her legs should she need it. Environment analysed, the composition of the surrounding buildings, walls and even road could be predicted and used defensively. And several mission strategies were being simulated, the models changing in real time as the surrounding variables shifted. But the dragon was waiting for her. As Maddie hoped, it had stopped attacking the building that Camille was trapped inside to focus on her distraction. It had pulled itself out into the street, collapsing the corner of the building that it had been burrowing into. I was shocked when I pattern matched the first frames of the video. The dragon was another Equus unit. 4 sharp, powerful legs, a long body with standard attachments for equipment and modules, but this one was huge. At least 4 times larger than Maddie, and she is not small to start with, she's the size of a pony. The dragon could easily stretch up to peer into the second-story windows of the buildings here. While Maddie is painted bright orange, except for her one black foreleg, the colour of search and rescue Equus units, the dragon was painted olive drab, military spec. Maddie's tactical overlay pinpointed further differences, red warning glyphs clustering around the creature's back. One identified a strong crane-like arm with wicked-looking sharp tools built into the manipulator at the end of it, large enough to fully enclose a human head. Another group of red glyphs highlighted EM warfare antennas for detecting and attacking digital devices with high-powered bursts of RF. And the largest warning identified a high-powered auto rifle, pivoting and tracking Maddie's every move. A single green glyph pinged onto her feed as Camille crept out of the ruined building's entrance towards the half-flooded building that the MH2 was moored against. The dragon's ecosystems detected him too, of course. It had cameras pointing in every direction. The auto rifle instantly switched from tracking Maddie to Camille, clicking furiously like an angry buzzing insect. Camille threw himself onto the ground instinctually, but mercifully, the rifle had no bullets. Suddenly, the dragon leapt towards Maddie with shocking speed, my girl jumping vertically out of the way to the building wall above her before pushing off to land behind it. Too close behind it. Without turning, the dragon flattened itself against the ground, thrusting a rear leg out and under Maddie's body and touching the exposed metal on her belly. There was a pulse of RF, and her video feed glitched to static. As soon as the ship's crane indelicately dropped Maddie onto the large back deck of the MH2, Camille radioed up to Yeshi. "She's safe. Get us out of here." "Hold on, everyone. We are leaving," Yeshi's voice crackled back. The motors of the ship churned the water and we escaped Santa Cruz de la Palma, and the dragon still menacing its streets. The battle had been short, but long enough to distract the dragon. I learned what had happened from Camille, who saw it all from his vantage point in a window overlooking the street. As soon as the dragon had focused on Maddie, he was able to get to the building the MH2 was moored behind. After Maddie, in an incredible acrobatic feat, jumped over the dragon as it charged, she was hit by an EM attack, electromagnetic attack, and collapsed. I'm glad I did not have a way to see what followed. The dragon picked up the immobile Maddie and slammed her into the corner of the apartment block. The brick building, weakened already by the dragon's attempt to get to where Camille had been hiding, broke apart as Maddie's weight punched through the corner and dropped into the harbour behind it. This turned out to be what saved her. As the crew rushed up the stairwell, through the apartment and across to the MH2, Camille saw the dragon shake off the layer of dust and bricks that had fallen on it and turn towards the floating Maddie. It did not pursue her. "It can't swim," Camille shouted as he too crossed the improvised rope bridge onto the ship. "I'll get her," and powered up the crane, fishing Maddie out of the water. We have 2 little robot friends needing our help now. Maddie, with Yeshi and Amelie trying to fix the EM damage, and Raffi, whose data packets come so slowly now that I have to adjust timeouts just to hear him. Maddie is stable, thankfully, though she is completely cut off from her ecosystems, including legs, radios and speakers. I'm connected by a standard debugging cable to the old ESA part of her body that is installed on top of the orange ecosystem. She said the game was fun, but she doesn't want to play it again. I told her she never had to in the first place, and she was so brave. "Raffi?" she asked. I bridged Maddie to the video feed from Daphne's room, where her finely finished small replacement body for Raffi lay next to him on the workbench, connected by many cables. She had built it with the advanced electronics found inside the Lafayette aircraft carrier. "I'm terrified," Daphne said, looking into the camera set up on her workbench/makeshift operating table. "This could kill him. I'm not sure of anything here." I relayed her words to Raffi, and after 128 seconds, I replied with the packet that Raffi sent back, slowly, over our network. "I am not afraid," he said. "Softov hare zetov." Daphne looked down at her debugging tablet and began the transfer. End transmission.
Lost Terminal is a Namtao production. It is written and produced by Tris Oaten. Credits narrated by Lucy Stringer. Thank you so much to our Patreon producers, Ada Phillips, Kit, Wynand Marais, Jade, Felicity, Bilkey, Jack L, Stephen McCandless, and all our patrons. Follow us on Mastodon at lostterminal@fostodon.org. Subscribe to the podcast on Spotify, iTunes, or your favourite network. For bonus content and other perks, support us at patreon.com/lostterminalpod. That would be lovely of you. Lost Terminal will return next week.